Hello, hello. Sound check, sound check. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you. There's quite a bit of ringing after when you speak. I think
Oh,
you might
okay.
have your speakers turned up too high.
Oh, okay. Now,
Still
hello.
there, still getting
Okay.
some feedback.
Okay, Ryan, there's a pitch, high pitch. Hello, 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 hello. One, two, three.
That's sounding better, yes.
Okay. Geshe tamdula sude toa. Oh, yeah. Tanda
Good
geshe
morning,
gugya rwa.
Rinpoche.
Oh,
Good morning,
geshe
Tashi
tamdula
Lele.
kongam sangbo yube. Ah,
Lo
dewa.
gen Rinpoche, dewa yu tuji chen na.
Oh, dewa. Oh, tawya. Oh, trastele. Ale,
Tashi tene.
tuku yangbu che yabu shiro na. Trade yangbu che.
Lo so tuji
Oh,
chen,
yeah.
gen. Kim chen na runa.
Oh, da ngwa shen. Yabu mi, yabu sev tongma. Ah, dewa.
Good morning, Katrina.
Good morning.
Please let Rinpoche know that Venerable Choden is away for 6 weeks. She's traveling on an Asian tour, just so he knows that she's not here today. Be for the next.
No. Oh, Geshe-la. Some children pa Singapore la pepso. Singapore dan Bodh Gaya dan DJ la Taiwan. Ani dundra truk.
Tunda tour la chilo le Singapore dan tunzo pe sonse.
Ah, la, la.
Ani te yoma desa gen mo nyensen shuro chi sa.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yabu dewa. Oh, chilo shoshala yabu de. Yabu de. Laso.
Very
Good.
good to hear that she's doing that.
Oh. Oh, pe yabu de.
So welcome again, Rinpoche. And Katrina, thank you for interpreting again today. Welcome to all our online participants. We'll begin with some prayers that can be found. The link can be found in the chat box. To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one that's gone, the foe destroyer, the completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, nor the world's supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I'm supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the three worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop, a dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, for land, sun, and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Yami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, Jason.
Oh yeah, what is? How can I say it? All right. Tatiana, Paden Dawataba, Uma Jubeko Sungudwa. Oh, Tinikasar. Seben Zeshin, Kyo Tambalas. Seben Zeshin, Kyo Tambala, Pangda Ludan, Lumi Shebala, Keban Yushi, they were done. Sami Jeda, Tiba Seban Yurse. Titatelia, Condri Nimis Sonroa. Tamadile, Mitu Susu Cheche, Tamba member Tris. Condor says on it, Tonk Takanga. Menzeba Meduba Tungura, Mekanga Tani Maduba Tungura, Mitu Susuche, Tamba member Tris, and it's called Sabachane, Joe Tamba, Mitsundengi, me betan Rumara, Ju Tambetan Rumare, Mitu Suche, Tamba member Tris. So then Tsumishib Namjuda, Condo Chambusasona, Condo Ange Karitan, China, Tish Chasha with the Mato, 어 디 차와 디 챤나 란다 챤라 뉴그레 차와 디 챤나 란다 챤라 팽기리 삼 펜바다 메 펜베 레가 카리 남주 쇼르와 소소 삼로 땅에 디 남주 디 콘드 트로사르 메베차그레 고 카리 이나 콘드 세네 레가 챤샤 요라 주다 주민시에 남주 트로지 주스네 내주다 템바 란다 챤라 레바 요에 그 차와데서 와라 주 마임버스 란다 챤라야 교양하게 자와들을 거라 어디 가리면 있더니 콘도세체 코 매베세처럼 그 타주 가르쳐는 노드 가르쳐는 제시가 그래도 어디에서 서버 공개 가사들이 안에 서버 연대 가르쳐서네 이러와 서버 신신 단계 연대 남제도서 서버 공개는 너 콘도를 셰신 백견도서 강가 대단 개회 대단 독서게 대단 메템바 gawaди yondende yungure sora mitu susu chichi sede su zeba mi kadu ina tongdebo mi su ina teda nyamdu dritebo o tende yungura su yedonga kabu chesage yichil tongyore mitu susu chichi su zeba sora suben zeshins kyo dambala panda ludan lumishibla ene kyo dambe tranle chudura namju yunge mi samlu tantunge samlu jachimbu yunge tranle chudura suben zishkyo dan panda ludan lumi panda ludan lumi seti tere taki siya nashi lukdan se rikba dan timba rala pendo yube tisigora suben zishkyo dan panda ludan lumi se lu mayimba se chu mayimba cha mayimba tisigora o tezu kanga 지역에 되게 콘디션에 수단 취미집에 남주 초지 지시도 왔더니 세변지 교담 판단 로당 루미시불 개발 교시 로당 루마인 베시발라 개발책 남주디 삼루다다 땅토그래 콘도원도 마치사 콘도 상게디 미 남주 강가 초사로 매베시사로 세변지 교담 판단 루미시 개발 교시 때 와도 내세 삶이게다 센델라야 라데와 셴데와 니 겨와치마 쇠바 콤베 페 어더 콘드 니미 삼발을 때네 라다미 따와토 그레스 어디 송구도 야 어데
So here, as for what to begin with, as is said in the entry to the middle way by the master Chandrakirti, he describes the kind of benefits that come from being patient, from having forbearance. It says here, but forbearance brings qualities opposite to those just described. So actually he describes above the kind of faults that come from anger. So in the verse that precedes this, it describes how wrath disfigures your face and leads you to what is unwholesome. It robs your mind of the judgment of what is right and wrong. Intolerance is swift to throw you to the lower realms. So here, when we are angry, when we sort of get fully under the control of our anger, we are very unpleasant to others. I mean, it sort of disfigures your face. You don't appear attractive or pleasant to others. And it leads you to what is unwholesome. You don't follow after those kind of good beings, but rather are just sort of attracted to those things that are unwholesome. And so too, it really robs your mind of the kind of discriminating intelligence, the sort of judgment to think about what is beneficial, what is right, what accords with the kind of benefit to self and others, and what is going to lead to harm to self and others. And so when we are angry, we just follow after that anger. It really gets rid of any kind of judgment that we might have. And so here, the qualities of patience, of having forbearance, are described as the opposite of those. Forbearance makes you attractive and dear to the sublime ones. You become wise in knowing what is appropriate and what is not. Afterward, you gain birth as a deva or as a human, and it secures the exhaustion of negative karma. So here, when we are able to practice patience, the kind of results that come from that, as it's often said, is that an attractive form comes from patience. So we have a pleasant appearance that allows us to get along well with other beings that we encounter. And we will also follow after, sort of be dear to the sublime ones, those who are acting wholesomely or virtuously. And maybe most importantly, you will become wise in knowing what is appropriate and what is not. You will act sort of in accordance with logic, recognizing what is beneficial to yourself and to others, what is harmful to yourself and others. So that kind of discriminating intelligence or analysis that is robbed when we are angry is something that we are able to preserve and increase when we have this kind of patience. So here in this life as well, if we have patience, we will gain benefits. We will reap the sort of positive benefits from that. But in future lives, it leads to a birth as a deva or a human. So by thinking about the kind of defects of anger and the benefits of patience, we should really make an effort to at all times have this kind of patience.
Oh yeah, 어디 컨트롤이 가서다. 뭐 근데 컨트롤 잡으셔야나. 괜히 찍다데 그런 내주 드라마들을 좀 봐. 근데 중요한데 컨트롤 잡으면 미치나. 담보들 소소 디기 매버 쉬어 매버 소로. 네버 멤버진에 소소데 좀 전에 소소 미기버서 소소 대화다 이데다 대화다 샤디 매버 시그라. semba mabu tu cheche kondu sete gire mi shendal ko neba chege lelo ya neba ke mena sosu chepu den jombar chigire chera sosu dewada ane sheti ne de mebse mi gibe so shagra da kondu chabu che ya ningji menge china minji shenle ya chawa chene diga mera samsa chawa menge china ni shenyan jom gire chera shenla neba chegra 김자르지네 고왕도 지게치네 코라 미지스 코라 로바도 줄에 와이다 지지 롱텐지 강그치그라 근데 란다 셴니가게 시디 매바스 미지버서 샤그레 차라 니베 여기 다 콘도 사비네 야토즈 콘도 사나 자와다 닝지 용게치나 어다 셴달 네바체네 디그마레 동에텐 디그마레 삼제야고 지치그마로와 콘도 땡마로와 그래서 어디서자 Ram Gibasa, me member soina, never megachuna, so me gibase, and degra. Conto says she some Ramadata, Tikba Mambusa, Samba Mejusi take up to the Sigrisera. Or the Geshe de Nadu Pechana Nambi Gudua. Conto tabi Tikba Mess, Conto Nashing Tikba substitution messera. Carasana. Koran Ramiji Shemiji Sindeladi Imicha, and Jamanami Joashima Dungani Ungura, Kewashenda Jomshagwada, Kizashenda Jomshagwada. Shella saw upon a Lunga Yusum Yukone, Shella saw upon Bekewada, Jambada Niji that sit in the Comshabe, Nima Yabuchevachina, Pecondo said it called Karchaguna some teacher, Nima Yabuchebe. Kyoto Jebunami Tawan Juem have social yora. Or teen de cocarsora. Namjune talking as a messicate and that case should condo massage, Sevaya, Tanque, the case of Burisungua. Yeah.
So here, when we get angry, if you're angry, you have no kind of discriminating intelligence or judgment about what is right and wrong. This really causes us to destroy our own happiness. When we get angry, we lose our mental peace. We get rid of any kind of mental happiness that we have. And that can cause us to ruin the happiness of others around us. Now, if we have some level of, say, love and compassion, it might be the case that we don't allow that sort of unhappiness that we feel to spread to others, or we don't let our anger cause us to harm others. But if you are lacking in love and compassion and you come under the control of anger, this can mean that you engage in all kinds of harmful activities, not considering the kind of suffering that you will bring for others. This can cause one to engage in all kinds of non-virtues that not even thinking about the sort of ripening results, not thinking about the harmfulness that it brings happens to others, let alone the sort of happiness of your own that you have destroyed. And so here, again, it's often repeated that there's no non-virtue like anger, because not only does it destroy our happiness in this life and cause us to create kind of non-virtuous actions that will ripen in the future, but it also is going to destroy the sort of virtues that we have done in the past. So even if we have made an effort to do good things, to do positive things, to do virtuous actions, our anger can destroy those ripening results before they even come about. So in the course of our life, in trying to take care of ourselves and sustain ourselves, it's extremely important that we rely upon patience and don't allow ourselves to get angry, recognizing the grave faults of this kind of attitude.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Geshe Timdi Trojum, Joe Geshe Bear, Kale Capture, Michi Dreamer Chiri Young Yorton, Jibata Medrivata, Sindevata, Mendeva, Stramadu Mambu Young Yorton Cocoalia. Oh, the day Young Kalia Bear, Kale Capture, oh, Takusaba Congo, Three, Conducare, Yoyaki, Yanga do something, Bear Kale Capture, Combustion Yana and the Condition, Seba Comgate Sura. Timdi Trojomba. Dennis did a shit dealer, Rante, Shante, Joachima, Saba Combe Payage, Dama Muyungurisura, Gashi Timdi Trojomba. Then did a shant of te segua. Oh, the Indizanko, Namjine Subsoche, Condu Magia, Tapsiche Uara. The Condu Magia, Tapsiche, Condu Judicae, Telesam Tangure, Condu Judipa Mayon, and Condu Young Marto. Condu Judicaresne, Coare, Medan Rodisha, would have tried to Mambo Yungura. Social parts, our Chigmana, me, so Chava Yungure. Ne Joanda, Chitin, Wanga, so never Chaba Yungurdo. Langaris and Dona Bears, Sanga Mambuja, the Chavada, the Sidamada Yordo. And it's far some James Shandal and never much in a 2 Yanchi Kamegako, Yordo. Oh, Tendetio Ecolia, some hundred Sungura. To do some truth on any conversation, Sarah. Yimite was Yuba, down in the Shediva. Yimite saying Shedantes. Yimite what it and the drama do shows and somebody you mention any dark condo, Top Jeta Chusara. Oh, to do some that in the younger some something younger, okay, or Mara Samja, but the Conduando Madua says, to mention what it was service or a time and do show at the Sembersa, sense of what's ours. Those college, okay, or Marisam, Tramadua Chunju by Namitaje, sent to a quarter, sent to a quarter. Teaching an Ichama, Tramadua Chamber Chosanaco, sent to a Yogura. He remembers the thoughts of Tramada Namsa, Majibja, Condo Chetichana, and a Cadina could give us your Marwa. Condo Sacha Georgia Kaga, Mijibson gets Sagdo, make us sit in the Uda, thoughts of Tramada Namsa bed. Long language and so make you share Tom Medrata and Mission Dollar Medrasa Hungua. Oh, today you would do some good. Imite saying, Imite what and the contra said top gear to this. And Trantimed Johnson, Imite was you Maris Gora. Oh, that Imite at the Magi of Tapsi Carcha or Sana. Then I try my delivery Johnsona. Doa. Many Carsora. Tramadura Chosora. Oh, that's still a bagger. Still a bagger that carry in the truth. Tramadura Caricho in a so Sabakibu Jete, the Tuki of Madesera. And the Ymedo, Semirik by Jusen Shagor. Penedicas was in a get nearly Dilamna with Carsa. Oh. I said, or the Mendoza order. Mendoza and the way Kesabal Choisera. So the way Magazine Shanda shares on the Sigora. And then Mendoza and the way Kesabal Choy. Imitate say that Stanjon Sarah. At Rami give us a good Sarah. Oh, Tatipa, Imedeva, the Kayet and all Karcha Urasana. Tinna Karasana, did it. Oh, Kasa. German Josera. Even though I came a little bit, you said, Kede, Tanam Junga said, Kede Choso, you and the Telemega church curse. 그때 저서 맨날 텔레 메가 제시 페세더라 디 야고요다 sobje gaya jindone sobje gaya tabshi semba megi ba ma che shera sobje gaya me ba ko ti chonsari na anta che ma che pendo ge wa mara tunge gal tunge ro 근데 저서 맨날 텔레 메가 제시 페세기도 ti chigre ya ti chilana
No.
근데 좀 뭐지 잘 저러지
So, here in the course of our life, we're going to face many different situations where, say, things don't go our way or are not appropriate or how we want. And it's important that we familiarize ourselves regularly with this practice of patience, being able to bear with those kinds of things that come up in the course of our life. We have to make a kind of effort to not give rise to anger, recognizing the sort of fault of anger. And so here it's important to then understand, well, where does anger come from? What causes us to give rise to this kind of anger? And we see that there are all sorts of different situations where something doesn't go our way, like maybe even the roads are busy, or there's something with the sort of elements, it's raining, or someone harms us in some way when we did nothing to them. There are all kinds of situations where we get a little bit like upset, our mind gets unhappy, and it is that mental unhappiness that causes us to give rise to anger and hatred. And so here it's important that no matter what others do to us or whatever situations we might encounter that we see as inappropriate or suffering or what be it, we're not going to get angry, but rather be able to bear with that. So if there is a situation where something is, say, not how we want or not exactly right, if we get angry at those little kind of things, then it's like we're abiding in this state where just anything can provoke us into anger. We're so easily upset, or our mind is so easily disturbed that we can get angry at anything. But here, there are some people, we know people like this who are just constantly on edge, almost about to get angry. Their face will get all distorted and they're just they start yelling at people and things like that. And really, it's the mental unhappiness. As strong as our mental unhappiness is, so strong will be our anger that comes out of that. So we should instead have this kind of attitude that no matter what kind of conditions come along, no matter what sort of suffering situation, we're going to not get upset, to be able to bear with that. And it is by being able to bear with those sorts of smaller things that we gain the ability to bear with, be patient in any kind of situation. So here, Shantideva describes this and elsewhere, that when something doesn't go our way or something obstructs what we want, if we allow ourselves to give rise to that kind of unhappiness, then we're going to get angry. But instead, we should recognize, as he says, that if there's a way to fix a situation, then why worry? We should just fix it. If there is no way to fix the situation, then why worry? We can't fix it. There's no reason. We shouldn't allow ourselves to give in to that kind of mental unhappiness. Instead, if there's a way to deal with the situation, we deal with it. But seeing the strong faults of anger, we should not allow our mind to get disturbed and have that act as fodder for our anger.
이 메데와 전에 심바 미디어 제제 담 미드지 제제는 콜로 삼르당 콘도세체 티크네 아니 칠레보이다 가인의 좀 메자 메데 제잔데 메드서 텔레섬데 시기데나 소슨 데바데 양자수 주변에 개요 말와 가인의 좀 메데 제잔데 메드서 겨와다는 냠버디오셔라 메데 베체네 삼루셰지 땅그데네 콘 데바데 수 주변에 요나데 심데제 콘도제야지 데네 버루지수 주변에 요나데 드르테네 주야게요 말아 메데 제잔데 메드서 데바 주빈 말이셔라 메데 제잔데 개와다는 냠다더니 뭐 뜻보시다 코틴데 쳐서든데 삼마부타데네 엔티고 마부지 사데라 초에 삼마부 당겨라 어째서 뒤던다요 말했습니다 실내바견다 그네 가위는 좀 있자 맨데 제잔데 메두스 동해제 미제베제 콘드제데네 수순 데바데 양자 잘로전 주변에 개요 말아 개와다는 냠부터니 바로 미교에 삼루셔지 땅그다네 개와 마부 냠기라 뜻보 마부 사그라 this on the Tindre Kenda, Yende Samlutane, Namgune Condusa Rochi, the Trandima, this also Messina lecture. Or the teacher Lamna to do.
So here, again, Shantideva says that whatever situation arises, we should have this attitude that we're not going to let it steal our joy, let it steal our mental happiness. So if we allow ourselves to be upset or disturbed by whatever kind of situation where we don't get what we want, or it's something unwanted, if we allow ourselves to get angry, that's going to damage our own ability to accomplish what we do wish to accomplish. It's going to ruin our own kind of mental peace and happiness. And the more we sort of start thinking about it, ruminating over what we're angry about, say, we're just going to create more and more non-virtue, get ourselves more and more upset, and be more likely to engage in non-virtuous actions. So this as well will cause our virtue to decline. Any sort of positive actions that we have done are damaged by that kind of anger. So recognizing this, we should have that kind of steadfastness, as he expresses in this verse, that whatever arises, whatever kind of situation comes up, we're not going to allow anger to let our minds get disturbed and steal that joy away. So recognizing the defects of anger and the benefits of patience, one should make an effort continually to practice this.
Oh yeah, that and that do Shantira. Chimba Paji True Song is a Tambu Chimba Songudwa, Tene Chudrim Songura, Tene Saba Songudwa, Tendico, Shala Pendo Raviche, Shala Pembe, Chimbaton la Soba, Shala Pendo Chebata, and then Lunga Yusum Yukone, Shala Sawa Panera, Ludanga, the Yukon, Miki Chukone, Shala Sawa Pang, oh, Tende Chebatizo, Yabuchi Lamdo Loyat and Songura, Kawasasha, that is Jambada Ningjita, Janju Sembla Soba, Samba Sambukari, Samba Tangayuna, Shaba Piguna, the Rotic Bashabala Soba Kyo, Mabuchigora, or Tezo, Manyambache, Yabuche Lea Tondalis Songihoto, oh, Tinicasura, Lamdo Longalia, Saba Congores, Saba Magumna, Tandasana, Shiritos, Ramadicena, Condricena, Chimbata, Kisamabu, Jumdugore, Nelia. Shala Tsawa Pambe, Kawamambu Jumdugora, Debuke and Mavasa Shagara. Marazuro, Midachil, Nemasus Pay Abuche, Imaji Condrutan, Coltuja Shuja Lamne, Nime the Trinkanga Cheru Rocker, or Tina Shiche, Pantak, but to the Kanga de Taco Taricacho, no Sambe, Halam Riri Rajiso and the Riri Soshaku Samsa Tangura Condusade, teaching Emma Yabuche Shabe, Kiwato to Debu Tawaki and Mavasa Shagara. Oh, the Indita Chimba Chutim Che, oh, Chimba dan Chutim La Sobe, Kawa Kang Chebate, Manyam Baji Yabuchi Lamdo Longhata, Tin Jebuti Yabuchi Me Tondalia, Saba Congore Sungora, Saba Magunda Masasha Bekewato, Tola Droyata, any ran la Carsure, Niasonli Kia La Soba, Tindenya Gora, what is on the Shella Pamba Trubata, Sawa Pambata, Chambada Niji. La soba kewa kang cheba to the manyamba cheche kewa chima konde kondo peya tundalia kondru masebe seba komgurese o tisungudwa o tilamnendura.
So, in teaching the six perfections, again, the Buddha taught generosity, then ethical conduct, and then patience as the third of these perfections. And generosity is, being giving to others, benefiting others in various ways. And ethical conduct is really the abandoning of any kind of harm, abandoning negativities of body, speech, and mind, engaging in virtuous actions, and purifying our negativities, and so forth. But we need the practice of patience as well to sort of preserve all of those virtues, all of that good that we have done, such that it's not destroyed. One can see if you're like normally doing lots of positive actions, lots of good virtuous things, but then get angry, that can destroy all of those sorts of positive actions that one has accumulated. It becomes something that doesn't go toward being a path. There's a danger of really destroying everything that one has accomplished. accomplished. And so here it's important again to have patience, that even if we are to say engage in lots of activities to benefit others and try to develop love and compassion and so forth, if we give rise to anger, those kinds of roots of virtue are destroyed. For them to be able to flourish, to bring about their kind of ripening results and also to become a path, we need to make sure that we have the kind of patience that allows our virtues to preserve, to allow those kind of qualities to continue and improve over lifetimes.
Oh yeah. Oh, oh yeah, this is the dark sort. Kewa Chendilia Sashabe Kewa to the right. Shall Pemba Truba than Sawa Bambala Soba, Chambaniji, Church Bichel, Soba Kazakari Sabina, Tezo, my name is Kewachima, Kone Konduya Pay Tondalia, and then Lada Miko on top good, Tito Tondalia, Kondru on the Madon, Seba Congre Songudua, Seventy Kyotambola Pandalu, the Lumishabala Kevin, you should take what let me get that it was 7 years. Lada Miko top to good. Lada me Kyo Topsona, and get into ya, Chimba Sutilla Soba Kyo to the Kone Konduba Pay, Kugabiora. Oh, Kone Lada me, Milu Cabot and the Tober Chedo, and it's about conduction to tag me some. Oh, they have Milu Lailu Cabot and Tomna Tentelia, any Lad Nesungu Tungele Tarasa Mayba, Lada me Kyawatia Tungaji Rashi Be, Teletarbe Chedo. Koale koe tongele tendo tarbeche sora la nyuji shawandu chuni kichi chekoba kewada chewa o tende chekoba tele tendo tarwachi chasam tarwatoba te ranchi buzam tarwatoba mayimba yurimbu kale kemne rwa chimba chudin sobala sobata jolomne yurimbu kale kemne rangi sedila soba kewa ngamala soba tende katin chenge pada mala soba tinchimbu machebe simje mebe Teta Tamje Roa, Chido, Teta get Tarwatola Chanko with it. Tetamje get Tawandula Tunga Meduba Randa Tsumba Resam. Oh, Tia Tesam Tsumbata Mai Barale, Shenche Bachegusa, Kawatoma Mebane Rache Banzi, Tandapado, and it Ranke Chishis in the Yomburete, Tandapado Kotungele Tendo Tawata, Yawashike Chuyomara, Ranke Chishis do any mission that never chebal so Yungora. Some Lutanda Kora Norsasam, that some Lokora Chebugagins, Takshin Chis, Nima Dala, some the Rakesh, some Luteda, Shen Yavar do Loni di Chebugagins, Takshin Chis, Toma Mebana Rakesh, Lotipa Yushana, Shenke Shishus, Toma Mebana Shenke Shushusin, Loti Yavar do Lotipa on the Ra, Shenki Tandalia Yavar do Gains, oh, Tine Takshin Chis. And it can reach it to the Janju Semkin, Simje Tamjig Tondo, Sanji Yakovan Tobachat, each of the Chunian Sabe, Chunian Tabachet, Sosu Samlata, Yane and the Kumdichi in some, Simlan Juatangi in some, oh, teacher do any Chunian gave some Kulo Janju Semroa, oh, Matachu Matsam, Samba Sambuch skin, and it's your Samba shows how to do it, yeah.
So here, then thinking that the virtues that we have accumulated, virtues of contemplating, giving rise to love and compassion, making sure not to harm others, and so forth, all of those kinds of positive actions that we have accumulated, in order to be able to increase them and develop them further, we need to not fall into the lower realms, but instead gain a good rebirth in the future, in order to be able to continue to develop and expand, increase those kinds of qualities. So as it says here in the verse by Chandrakirti, that forbearance makes you attractive and dear to the sublime ones. You become wise in knowing what is appropriate and what is not. Afterward, you gain a birth as a deva or a human, and it secures the exhaustion of negative karma. So at the very least, we should be thinking that we are going to try to practice patience, and as well as the dharma and so forth, in order to be able to ensure such a good rebirth in the future, not to to thinking I'm not going to allow myself to come under the control of anger, such that it destroys those kinds of virtues that lead to a good rebirth in the future. But recognizing that even a good rebirth as a human or a god is still within the nature of suffering. One should think that I'm not doing this just to escape the suffering of the lower realms, but also to gain a kind of stable, lasting happiness, something that is free from the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death, to be able to gain real freedom from this cycle of suffering. But even that kind of goal is not really sufficient, because thinking that really I need to make effort over a great period of time in order to try to benefit all of these sentient beings around me, all of whom have acted in the capacity as my father or mother or loved one. There's not a single one who has not. And so really, all of this time, through through countless rebirths, I've had this kind of attitude of cherishing myself, of only thinking of yourself. And at that point, we can recognize that that hasn't brought us out of this kind of suffering. Instead, we're still sort of in this same situation. And so thinking in this way, one gives rise to this kind of determination to exchange this self-cherishing attitude for an attitude that cherishes others, by getting rid of that kind of focus on just our own aims and instead trying to cherish others as our main focus, casting aside our own kind of self-cherishing attitude. We can then, in this way, give rise to this attitude of bodhicitta. And this attitude of bodhicitta meaning that we wish to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, that really other cherishing kind of attitude brought to its culmination. And so one should think that for this purpose, I'm going to listen to these teachings, listen to the Dharma, and not just listen to the teachings, but really take the time to contemplate them again and again, familiarize myself with them, such that eventually I can give rise can become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So at the very least, we should just have a positive kind of attitude for listening to these teachings, at best this sort of bodhicitta attitude.
Oh yeah. Tonga zo denema lo shaginda. Geshe che mogo che karesna wone dole to so ju mendra chi do yan yang de chi ba de chi gu do. Oh te so za mogo che. Ta tena ngobo nam rangone ye ba rawa do ye bar jimba chen de dan che ba malu ban do bar yu ta se do. Oh ta chu jen su tu shana. Ngobo nam rangone ye ba ngobo tamje range ngoyo chu ye ba. Kora rawachen su kewarachine rawachen su ke yogi besoro. Oh, ne yoba ina ko idonga da meo da tradanyen la soba randa shen la soba rawando trube su ge yoba jimbate kasa tangje da chegi tangje ni ga yogu do. Oh, tinde chi yoba jimbe wange ni kyo kanga yogu do. Kasa tangje da chegi ta do jimbase. Kasa rawa truba jimba. Kasa la shenbe chutu so rawa truba jimba. Oh, tinde samlo yoba te se go do. Rawacha do yabar jimba kedane tele cheson dene nga sam nga rawacha yobase de ne nga se de ke chembu shibse ne shen se de ke chunjun chi che shengi ti do se de ke chunjun chi chi ba yong do ne nga se so nga cho tige sama nga cho tige ne nge na nge chulu chi ba nge miri chi ba nge longba chi ba se o ta rig da ta che ke sa sha cho le ke sa Shibuchegdo, Shangone Chenico Kashe Shalake, Kashe Lolke, Kashe Lublike, Kura Rawachen Keke, Marwa, Keranzu Shalake, and Nubliki, Kenzun go Sebuch and Ango, Tanabuki, Kia Marwa, Kokora, Kuda King Kiora, Kora Rawake Mara. Etike, in a teach on the Koya, Chokshen the Shusti Shara, Tamigi, Samlo Tanjora. But the Shen Sama Miss Sama Kibu, John Dola to me, there was some Chiba Mato. Take your matter. Oh, Dina, tell it any. Nazo, Konzo, say, Takchota, Shancho, say, you the Longbada Miridata, Karina, Soso Chorage, Jinsa, and Soso Chod the Kanga Yashode. Pacho the Yaga in a Duga Soshara. Then she gave an the Tum de Chiore, Tijishena Cameron Gira. She gave an alia teacher. Mimambuchi, linger of Tanjaco. Lingatansa Bagijat in the Royal Linga Chambuchi, Trombachi, Chilshin, Lingatan there, because Lingatan Trigita, Kala Satiche. And the coach has not danced that over dances to the Loga, Yomarang and Melose, and ko tatuwa chinche pa kanjuma ju tangsha imbara. And the consul road and is a Mikasha near the Rosare. A Kasha de or a Sogame. And it's in that the subject that would the Yonsha. Oh, Kerans and this over Kangapa, Sangma Sunima, dream as she loved her. And the consul Roger sources of what answered the Pando, Pass Sangma Suchi. And the Mamuji Yushire. And does it Sangma Summa, Yamdo, Sangma Soros. This is all what is. This talk what is. Time mission that's the software. Mission coach was also with the mission that's over. Try that tree the road that is a country. Yaka Homara. Time the sources of the sources of what it's so much area. Mission that dance with over this, so much area, because it's so much area. So the so much as well. Which is a conga, sing and this should that she is so the Kanga Yakusan. Or dinner she there. And it goes to Misama local congregation and Kawaka Yomara, to get down to Chibuchi Matiki Omara. That's the same keg. Ngay City, so while a Yanni is here. Oh, Tina, she said, Yan Shendashi, that's what it's there. Yan Pomburo, she Asashi, Chera, and the young Mushi, New York. Kuni Kalari, Satanzi, Mandi, Shashi, Juba Ju and National, Juba Mambuju is shot. Color says my juicer. And did you Chendade Juba juice of the moon of that she tried to Shanga, which key on the Tinan Juba Judah. Mochi would it some change in a teller resolution Juba Jugada. And the mercer of Nada Juba Junanga would the Nadi Tinal Juba Moviga, Tapsat and Judo, some Najeshi, and Juba Jewel, they were so good. Nadi is in the chatting dinner to the Moviga, than some Mokaji in the Samgiora. Oh, did you do me some some times or mother? Don't tell the care, Mara, you were your Kawachun and Martin Sigara. That's it. Yeah. Oh, did you love the thing to it?
So here we will pick up in the text. I don't think we need to do a review. Lots of things will come again and again as we go through. So here, it's a little bit hard because the Tibetan sentences sometimes end a little bit different. But consequently, we're on page 15. The Blessed One used the convention dependent and linked arising with respect to things for two purposes. So here, to end the misconception that composite things exist from their own side independently, and to end the faults that ensue from this misconception. And so here, this grasping at things, grasping both at the self of persons and the self of phenomena as having this kind of existence from their own side, this independent existence, this is the source of all of these various thoughts. We first have this thought of I, and then we have this kind of clinging to, grasping at that I, and a disregard for those others. When we hold to this I, we kind of hold everything good on our side. We get very sort of biased and possessive. Like any sort of reason can become something to distinguish between self and other. Sort of we can be like, well, I was born in the East and those people were born in the West, or like I have yellow hair and that person has black hair, or whatever it is. We can use this kind of discriminating thinking where we are holding to a really strong I, and therefore then holding as well to this idea of other. We have like this side that is better and therefore the side that is worse. We're not really thinking about the fact that we all just want to have happiness and we all don't want to suffer. Instead, we sort of get into this kind of holding I and then holding other. So here, just to give a couple of examples about how we do this, some that might just kind of make you laugh. One is presented in the 400 verses, where it's said that there was a time when there are a bunch of different sort of parties having a picnic in this large park. And it would have been the case back in the day that they didn't have any sort of special bathrooms. You just would need to go to the side, the edge of the park to do your business or to throw away your trash or whatever it might be. And so one of the parties gets up and goes and leaves the park, and the other is left there when the sort of owner of the area comes around and is like, hey, you know, you need to go clean up all around this park. There's people that have left, things that need to be cleaned up. And so this party goes around and they're looking at, say, having to clean up mess, things that are not clean, but they only really want to touch anything that's related to their own party. It's not like there's any difference between something that is gross, that is produced from one person as opposed to the other person in terms of its color or its smell or whatever it may be. But because of our mental projections, we think, well, oh, this is our mess, my mess, so I can clean it up, but that's some other person's mess. Like, that's gross. I don't want to have to touch that. And so this is all made up by our mind. There's no sort of difference between the mess of one person and the mess of another person, but yet we hold to, oh, well, that's mine. Or like there's another story about a woman who was sort of like an upper class woman, and she had her attendant, and both of them got sick from eating some bad food. And so they're both sick and vomiting. But the sort of upper, sort of boss woman has a silver kind of bowl that she's getting to throw up into. And she looks at her, attendant or her servant who's only got like a clay pot that she gets to vomit into. And this woman is sort of giving rise to pride, like, oh, look at my vomit bowl. And it's like, well, they're both suffering and they're both vomiting. But we can really hold the sense of like I and mine as being better, even when it's just kind of ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. But the number one around you are around to your banjimba. Consultants, the cheat and zero. Gindita Jebas, there's all the contra down, I get and trado and drenching da. There's someone you must sometimes you don't show it. Tell then any children I use some Jabang, but someone young show it. Jason Joss, tell it then any chicky, I young girl. Oh, Tico, Zawadico, Taduns in Battery, said Round, and I said the cage and bush but any shantak young conquer go. But you did that, Malu and Dover, you are answer. Then a talk about some to Tedilla Chaji, Namshatam, the Che table con essay. Then a talk about some lesson. Chashe of Shirwa, Chashe, Mobukadish, Combat in the Kota, Kikunsi, Bata, Toda, Sada Kanga to the Chashe, Chiltene, and then they come was Patagiora. The tired that they come by dear says it in and a chicken when she check your marto. Toda, the sick bata yet, I yearn that to the Kanga in the Cheneco. Chala Remato, the Kamba is a chicken, Zusu Omara. Tina, Tedala Tene, and then they come by the Patagre, Tesam, you come by you to this order. And it tinal test on the Kambanal Terre, Tel Lagwachans on the Kambala Lagwachambade, Tisha Mado, Lagwachansa, the Sabachin, the Sabati Kambade was in the Kereo Marto. Tinaco, Tesoletene, the Kambade Sipa, Tagbatesam Gishavare. Take a shower chamber to the Kanga Kamba shower chambers. Chashela Tursin, Delne Kamba shower mato. Chashe to the Pasha and the Kora, Rawan to Trubachu, Chick, or Marto. Or Tina Shingo, but so much Iberwa. Tas and Asana, Soboda, Semda, Sword, and the shit that she mabuchora. The Dalitan and As Patagur, Tetsam Langa shower mato. Young Asanga Jitel lost Tina, what she should say near your Marto. Oh, Tisugora. Then they talk about some do, 10 days last, 10 days everyone. Chachi Tamja Shagwe Shogwe, Chawa Sheba, May Sekbala Sogba, or the Chu Lambala Sogba, Chawa Rada, the Chaw Karin, the teacher, but the Shaku with this, Chachi Tamja, Che Tabala, Connection, then they get agent everyone she so sauce. But I'm sure when you Brahia, or teach you love the 10 days.
So here, then, as it says, this, again, this teaching of the convention of dependent and linked arising with respect to things has this first purpose of ending the misconception that composite things exist from their own side. So this independent, sort of grasping at things to exist independently or autonomously, the self of a person or the self of phenomena. And then due to that, all of the kind of faults that ensue from this kind of misconception, we hold strongly to a sense of I, and and then the sense of mine, and so forth. And from that, all of the various afflictions occur, and the kind of karma that comes from that. So here, this is the purpose in teaching this. And then to show, secondly, that with respect to all dependently arisen phenomena, all presentations of actions and agents are coherent in being mere dependent imputations. So here, everything is dependently imputed in that, so whatever object it is designated on a particular basis, a particular collection of parts. Something like a house, for example, when you have walls and windows and a roof and so forth, you can designate that as being a house. That is, and you can even touch the house. But when you try to search for within that basis of designation, within the collection of the parts, like the right side, the left side, the roof, the windows, and so forth, you can't actually point to something and say that is the house, existing autonomously, existing independently, somehow from its own side. So really the imputation, the designation of house on the basis of that collection of parts is the extent of the existence of that house. But that's coherent. Agents and actions can function. One can talk about things as functioning within there not being something beyond that kind of imputation. So here, there's nothing that is sort of established from its own side without being dependent on that imputation as well. And so here, when it comes to, say, the I, there's nothing about the I that exists either within the collection of the aggregates of form and feeling and so forth, nor apart aside from them. But yet we can talk about the I in a coherent way as acting as an agent and so forth. And so too, when it comes to everything else, like fire is able to burn, water is wet, but that does not mean that they are independent or beyond being mere dependent imputations.
뭐야? 단대로단 뒤에 된데게 전이세. 단대 땅만 될 야. 대신 제발 좀 송백고 봐서서 단대로. 뒤에 된데게 전이세도 안 되네 마. 덤바 산제 좀 되는 서류 장배 넣을 값서 근데 송샤서라. 대신 제발 좀 셰자와니 디다데. 대신 제발 좀 하셔야 돼. 디레지르스 그래서 디다데. 네. 디여벤 디종세 디여벤 디종세 단 디여벤 디종세 단 마시 소 샴내구나 디여벤 디종세데 교단께 신가르지나 던도도서 내 사출르 저시 소바 상마 야부 창소나 에네타 드레분 요구디 야부께 연구데서 거라 주진디 창매나 에네 현다지기 디께고요 삼네 삼루단에 지금 말해서 거라 주진디 야부 상소나 현다지 깨고 말해 삼루단이나 마게나 삼배나 고 마게바 차고 말에 깨 연구해서 거라 자산 대여나 주진디 사나 아니 현다게 매나 단 현다 주진디 여베나 현다 제바 보시게 너 다깨고요 삼네 람네 깨 연구래 깨고요 마 삼네 깨 토고 말해서 텐데 말해서 거라 로이 요아 요마요 깨요 말에 데 살루 잠베 더 값서 연구도 사다 추다 르다 사빌라 소바타 저거 내 누구 깨버 자오 냠바요 말했어 이나 고창선에 고랑 유아진이 깨운 거랬어 누구대야가 전에 누구대 사다 추다 르다 저 소발을 때는 깨서 삼르게 거 말했어 고랑 유진 상선에 깨운 거랬어 다전다 제바별로 요와 요나면은 유진 상선에 고 깨운 거래 유진 만선에 깨고 삼내 깨고 말했어 티셔거라 디여벤 디종스 디께베실 디께스데 주단 깨 고란데 깨고래 딱배 주단 근데 마부 디 치르바데디 주다 마부여도 치소세쇼데 티 딱바데 티 깨그리세라 네 원주 챵불라 소바 제바보쇼데 티 삼루탄데 깨고 삼네 깨그리세라 제주서라 근데 이 말에 주코란데 미닥바시 거래서 주코란 미닥바 깨네 ene ten drebu de kigre ma do kyu tak ba chi jo che me ba te shang ge chi drebu ke yo ma res ti ton da ra me da ba tu me ke le chong ten ge ora kyu de ke be che na ti jo che ne ni drebu de ke wa yong thu de se ora kyu tak ba chi jo me che ge ta ga se 만주르체 대대게 지금 제부끼 말해서 어떻게 걔나 뒤따도 깨깨가 연구라 주코라 내가 그게 제고 말아 대신 되고라 여나 되고라 아 되니 걔나 뒤따도 깨고 마기는 남의 마기베 차르고라 니케베시 니케와데 간데 머리베 깨진 두시 남세 디 니베게를 때니 깨워서라 주 미닥베 주 상말 때니 깨고 말해서 라라 깨지게 녀레다 레지시게라 소바 팀베 주다 깨를 때니 팀베 제부터 깨그래서 그러와 미팅바이 줄을 때는 제부 현대식 끼고 말해서 그러다 강데 머리베 깨진 두시 남세 디 난게 때를 시작도 와 살루장ben dollar sobatinde şeyde çiğtende şey var. Tome marik ba niban duci stende yala chungi şeyde nangi gibi gücü tübe nangi tende kol şey var. Kande marik be kenjin duci nam di nebe gel tane. Nebe yebe chule tane jebu dikke var esin. Nebe mebe chule tane jebu ki mar. Şey son badar. Ngobuna kyu meba marese, kyu yoko rese, kyu meba kena. 주 매네 제부 깨기네 제부디 롱바치리 깨나 롱바 탐젤 깨고래 제부디 뒤치리 깨나 뒤 탐젤 깨고래 주 매네 깨고네르다 야가 깨나 군가 깨고래 가르스네 야가 깨 군가 매게바 깨 말했으네 가르제르스네 다고 주진 삼마사지 셰고르 마도 셰야케고 마라 롱바치리 깨 롱바 챤다질 메도나 깨매나 롱바 델케 도안 델케 메도아 카레스나 주진지여서 델 데마사레 티 마케르 델 데사레 케르 셰고르마도 챤데 셰고 마라 랭가케 와세더라 유랭갈케 랭갈 마제 튜랭갈케 랭갈 메케와이나 에네 고 주진 여바데 타셔사라 주진 메나 롱바실케나 타투케 롱바 탐젤케 고레 롱바실 마게네 탐젤 마게 고레 튜질케나 탐젤케 고레 튜질 마게네 탐젤 마게 고다 아니 거를 머리베게 두시 남시소 바다 뭐뭐 남라 주메바 마이세 라라게 주두스 제부랑게 다니 따따게세 티디 트랑바도조 자갈야 네 쫓다 tar치슈케다 치슈라 어디인데 거저 따게생게 캐링그라 주의되선 제부디 당분에 여여래서 주의되선 매번 제부시게 요 말해서 그러라 제부 거란 여여래 배나 뜰 용가 넘지서게 될거 너무 여여래 되날 거치 온데는 좋단 버래 당부 통구요 말도 도도지마도 지마고야 이제 저런데 너무 통구도 주의되선 매번 제부게 요 말해 주의되선 거란 제부 여여래서 그러라 남바전에 주의되선은 제부 여나 아니 제부디 양게 주의게 고 말고 거 여여대로 디제 춘주 값을 때 선구다 주의도선 제이나 세수 메산 사원 요새 근데 주의도선에 칼라서데 디 칼라데 메산 주리요라 다 칼라서데 때네 디날 칼라나 메산네 칼라서데 메산 와사르르스 아니 지도자라 요라 그래서 주의도선 대부요 말은 남바잖아 주의도선 대비 년에도 요라 대비 주리에 주년에도 요마다 코라 요마라 코라 주의도선 대비 요마라 주디 깨체네 야 대부신에 깨고라 라랑게 주도선 대부 랑게 당이 여봐야 많이 배세 따게세 주의도선 여는 대부 깨고마 아니 여기 자와 자고 말아 코란도서 여여버라서 대부나 랑게 주다 ngෝ직도 메라세 장점바도 좀 내봐도 말해서 거라 상마치수 랑신 규대다 랑신 찍버렸어 걔네 수고 벌써 연구를 파템도 거라 지소를 파템도 그러세 어디 말해서 거라 랑게 규다 ng오치도 메라 디여나 디종시 원조라 소바 지단기 제바보 강게잔 대병어보다 개버 자원년별로 요와 메나야세 규긴데 상소나 온줄라 속에 제밥을 요 메나야 고게 그래서라 대부랑이 깨와다 템베 규긴데 연하데 규긴 멘다와데 여발에 네번 대부응어본 데다 된다와 종아 인베세 요 대부응어본 남네 요아메베 켈레 종아다스 규다 제발쇼 요아메베 켈레 종아데스 군웅게 요아 알아 네네 대부응어본 남라
No, no. So here, then, the Rice Seedling Sutra, getting now to the definition of dependent arising of composite phenomena. So here, the Rice Seedling Sutra, quoting from that, it says, because this exists, this occurs. Because this arose, this arises. This is called dependent arising. So here, particularly looking at, say, like a sprout, something like a field, when you have the particular causes and conditions come together, when all of those aggregate or all of those are present, then the sort of result will come about. A sprout comes about when you have the seed and the soil and moisture and heat and all of those kinds of components, those causes and conditions. Not like, say, a creator being thinking, oh, I want this sprout to arise, or this sprout will arise. It's only from the coming together of the causes and conditions, the kind of proper causes and conditions, that one can have a sprout come forth. It's not going to come about due to the sort of mental will of a particular kind of deity, like the thought that they have, like, oh, I will give rise to this sprout. But rather, it's only when all of the causes and conditions are present. That is the necessary component to bring about that kind of sprout. So any sort of result needs to come about from the aggregation of causes, and not just the kind of aggregation of causes, but a sort of concordant and appropriate kind of a cause. So things that are impermanent cannot arise from a permanent cause, cannot arise from, like, say, the Samkhyas would say, some sort of general principle, this sort of underlying principle that is the component, that is is what all of our universe is sort of made out of, is the substance of all of that. That is not something that is a suitable or appropriate kind of cause, nor is the sort of will of a creator. The cause needs to be both impermanent as well as appropriate for the particular result that it is bringing forth. And everything is such that it needs multiple kind of causes and conditions coming about. So here, as we can see, if something arises causelessly, again, this is one of the sort of views that is being negated here. The cause, it would have to be the case that it arises all of the time, or something would never arise at all. That's what happens when we assert that something is causeless, or that it is produced from a permanent cause. So again, we need to have some sort of result, that a cause that accords with the result, that is appropriate for the result. As is stated here, that is dependent on ignorance, conditioning factors occur. So here in the description of our sort of inner process of dependent origination, ignorance leading to conditioning factors and so forth through the 12 links of dependent origination, this is getting at the fact, as will be explained later, that kind of process of interdependent origination. But this is emphasizing that the cause needs to be an appropriate kind of a cause. So if something arises causelessly, then it needs to be, it couldn't just come in one place or at one time, but it would rather need to be in all places or at all times. Because if we have, say, something in one place but not in another, then it is occasional, then it is subject to a particular kind of cause that means that it's here but not there. Or if we have something that, say, arises in summer but not winter, there's a reason for that, that because things are occasional, that means that there can't be either no cause or a permanent cause. Otherwise, things would have to be in all places and at all times. And so too, this idea of dependent origination eliminates the kind of idea held most prominently by the Samkhya school of self-arising, that the result already exists at the time of the cause. Like, they take the example of a sesame seed and they say, well, sesame oil is already there in that seed. You just squeeze it and it comes out. So here, the Buddhists refute that by saying that if something already exists, then what need is there for its production? If the result is already present at the time of the cause, then why would you need to have this sort of causal process? As Shantideva puts rather bluntly, if the result exists at the time of the cause, then when you're eating food, you would be eating shit, because that's the result that's going to come about from that. And so here, the potential exists within that cause, but not the result itself. And so too, all things need to have their appropriate causes, and something like a general principle underlying everything, from which things arise and then sort of dissolve back into, that too is not an appropriate kind of a cause. So because thus all composite things have causes, and effects do not exist at the time of their causes. Therefore, effects are not the same entity as their causes. Because this, causes and conditions, exist, this effects occurs, means that composite things do not arise from a divine creator such as Ishvara thinking, I will produce this. But again, as we see, when these causes and conditions which are concordant with the effects they produce exist, that is when a variety of causes and conditions exist, a variety of new effects will certainly arise.
Oh yeah. That and that go tambu de direction. You are maybe can let any show us at Salu Jangba in a Zishina Sella Soba in a Nimanda Ala Soba, Zambulin Soba, and the Kansa in a Ranga Devada Tungela Soba, Pumbula Soba, Semda Soala Soba, Chita Nago, Sama Tamjetelia, Ranga Judan didn't Soba Latana and it give it. The Sosonane, Debuke Ungre, Jena Samnada, Masamnadero. So Menane, Jegu Samne, Jegmarese. You are maybe Kelicho, the Samatam the Chira, Dj Tamjelia. Shandaji Kulunga, you are Tagmarese. Chababotula Sobata Sivara. Chidaneko, Jutu, Tiki, Samson Samlut and Jebu, Tiki, Samluka, Koran Samsona, King Gudesuvare. You are maybe can let any chance, stick Uncle Shanjura. Oh, did you love?
No. So here, the first sort of point is that this composite phenomena do not arise from the sort of thought of a creator. Rather, again, whatever kind of phenomena it may be, from a rice seedling to the sun, the moon, the planets, our own sort of body, our happiness, our suffering, all inner and outer phenomena, they don't arise when a divine creator has a sort of intention or a thought, the will to produce that, but they only come about when their causes and conditions are complete. Even if you have all of the sort of causes and conditions, if you're lacking the causes and conditions, even with that sort of will of a creator, they couldn't bring things about. It's only through the coming together of all of the necessary requisite causes and conditions that we can speak of the arising of phenomena. So this is applicable to all things, all inner and outer phenomena.
Oh yeah, thank you better. Debuting Namne. Debuting Nam Rani Kewada, Mitun Bekuse, Debuting over the Conducerva, Jurachi Chanichi Atogura, the Judega Jurachi, Neling Judan Henji, Jusera Judan. Or does you have son in Jurachi and any Nelly, Nindedi and all by Jurgura, Madoko Tasiki Ungumardo. So debuting over Namne Rani Kewada, Mitun Beku. Takwa ke chutinde yungu mare se tuchen takwa inada tu takwa inada shiso takwa inada onju takwa inada takbe ju kande chile tene ko kiye yomar takwa se de jura meba dela kangi ranshin jing meba dela kenam tachi chuse takwa se de keba tsugu takwa se de jigden yonda ke takwa se de ya tu gyundu yoba de chile takwa se giro tele se mare ko takwa rishi yore takwa rishi yungu tu se de Tende Tagbade, Jun Nam June Yotangasilla, Jun Dabu de Yotangasilla, Tagbadish Ungre said Tabasado, Telesegmare. Kabatusina, Kangiranshin, Jimmy Batella Canam Tassis. Jibacha and Judah King, the one called Jura Drogation Dona, Duchessiga. Judah King, Jura Mendrogation Dona, you have a land, you are Mendrogation Dona, Tabasigora. Jukoran Juachi never dead and getting any Jebuke or mother. Called Penny Digmara. 그 줄도 계시고 말은 그 팬바도 내버치요 말 어디 그서 거라 제병어부 남네라니 깨와다 메트베 주 두천다 치다 두천게 자불린디 깨베 주시그레 지신나설로 소바 깨베 주시그라 이나 두천 참메다 두천 딱바다 어떤 데서요라 담보 자불리 차원도 남가리아 두천 딱바 참메 차치기 맹게 참으셔던데 어디서 어때서 손 뒤에는 깨버렸어요라 자 두천 딱바 이나 참메 이나 대용 말했어요라 차단제베 두천단 미닥베 두천 제족게 그래서라 미드베 요 두천 참메 소다세 뒤시 뒤딱와서서라 두천 참메서 야 뒤제바 볼케르게 요라 뒤게 왕게 강가 용거래 현대 쪽에 고마라 그런 뒤줄랩선의 강가 깨용그래서 대야 딱바 뒤딱바시고라 뒤 미닥바게 조치그래 남발래 요 내다 사다 추다 투실어서 봐 손산에 단다 그 뒤정게 걸리걸리 주라 누구 저게고라 참 미닥베 뒤게데 주치그래 단데 딱베 주세요라 딱베 주다 딱베 뒤전샤메다 저주 주치 말해서 아니 뒤전샤메서 유라메베 딱베 차 유라메베 딱바 참메 치고 딱바 연게데 참메 참메세데 코로버베 치메 그 코란 장장야 차시에서 찌에 매버지 유나니 참메시그라 딘데요 말에 고치 소는 마도 공고 코란 두게요 말에 딱바 참메 치고 유인 간래자 겨 마인라세 대단하야 라랑게 유로쟁게다 아니 간데스키 그랬으네 라랑게 얘네들 렌지 틈베 주도 좀 유로제세 주네 넘버 페어나 넘버 주네 생기 주는 주어지잖아 교생한테 그 교단 깨도 손이야 펠레 요르비 제제 아니 레부디 깨고요라 교단기 속바참 얘기가 말해 그러 거야 유로제냐 전에 녀르신네 텔레 교식이라 레부디 깨와야 펜베 초수야 유로지기는 유레교라 어디서 제가 많이 봐 대단하야 랑게 유로제게 주진 데깨베 셔르세 제가 뭐 간데시나 코란 주대야 주단 깨를 깨고래 주단 깨를 때는 마찬가지 주대 딱바 차그라 주 딱바 얘는 좋아요 말은 좋으면 레부께 더 말해서 좀 미닥바 제대야 주진기 차다 제바 망부치 손이 그래서 제가 미닥바 두메 깨를 때는 좋아서 되시거라 주로쟁게 주진 데깨베신 데깨오세 그 코란 유라쟁기 주디께서 대왕의 유아체는 레부션다 깨운 거래서 저 셰바다 차단 셰바 미닥바 두메견래 좋아서 어디 뭐 가데시나 치뭐 보이나다 난거 뭐 보이나다 녀레다 해지시게 timba 미닥바 유아쟁게 주칠 했더니 깨고르마다 유아메바 딱베 뒤다 참이 줄어서 같은데 깨요 말해서라 이런 거 보남 딱바 네바 매베 주간래 잡면 좋아 네바다 데베 어디를 가서 디바도 지주나 차다제바 로아 차다제바 미다바 두메견래 좋아서 니버셔서 무디바도
Yeah. Yeah. So then the first of those is, again, thus these new effects arise from causes that are not a divine creator's thought. And so then secondly, it's not just the case that it doesn't arise from the creator's thought. Things don't arise in that way, but they need to arise from kind of concordant causes, causes that accord with the particular result. So it continues saying also, when these effects that are composite things are produced, they do not come from causes and conditions that are unitary, partless, or permanent in the sense of being unchanging. In other words, any discordant causes such as partless particles and so on. So here, again, whatever is something that is permanent, and here one should understand permanent not in the sort of regular way of like something remaining for a long time, remaining stably for a long time, but really, as it said, that scholars, experts understand that impermanence is referring to a nature of non-disintegrating, not changing or disintegrating in any way. And so thus, something that is unchanging cannot act as a cause. Something that is permanent has no capacity to bring forth a result. It can't engage in sort of benefiting or harming things. If something is permanent, such that its nature is not changing, it's not disintegrating or momentary in any way, then that's not something that can act as a cause. So whether it is some sort of idea of a permanent cause in terms of like a general principle or something like that, this is not tenable. And so too, any kind of discordant cause, such as partless particles, are not suitable to be posited as causes. So too, when it comes to like, in general, we can speak about the universe being built on particles, on atoms, but they're not partless particles. They are not sort of the truly existent, most subtle sort of building blocks that lack any kind of parts. Everything would have to have a part. So although it's said that in the sort of forming of the universe, there's extremely subtle kind of space particles that then create the universe, it's necessary that those particles themselves be impermanent, and they also can't be partless. And now there are some that would also assert that somehow time acts as a creator, and this is a different understanding of time as being something permanent, whereas the Buddhists would assert, particularly at these high schools, that time is something that is impermanent. It's actually a thing. In that, for example, when we have a crop that comes about due to the passage of time, that is acting as a condition or as a cause, and such. And insofar as it acts as the sort of force of change, time itself is impermanent. And so there's nothing whatsoever that exists that could act as a cause in any of these ways, something that is unitary or partless or permanent. And so here, again, instead of that, then the sutra states that because the specific and ever-changing causes and conditions of the effects were produced, they will produce these effects. Because this arises. Accordingly, effects arise from many causes that are impermanent and have parts. So it's not possible, again, to have a kind of permanent singular sort of cause. Rather, the cause itself for impermanent phenomena needs to be impermanent, and it also needs to have parts. It is multiple. We sort of have the concordant conditions as well as the kind of the actual cause, the substantial cause, and so forth. All of those coming together. None of these things, nothing that is partless or permanent or kind of non-changing, unitary. In that way, could act as a cause.
Oh yeah, that's somebody. Ngobo nam takba nuba mebe jukan le mijusti tacho so. Ngobo nam takba nuba mebe jukan le cha mijun la sa takbe jule tane jungu mares takbe jule ya debu che nuba yo mares kon jurdo che ka yo marwa tire. Dana nuba da dembe ju tamje le ja debu tamje jo mai bese. Nibada dembe ju midagba yenge ju yinaya ko ju tamje ki debu tamje ke marwa dread bjin dressing ke ko sabyo da tro da to ya loga korwa ya te mai ge dru da tola soba ke na ko sabyo da tro da chi chadro la soba chi jo ya loga korwa o te ndiko midagba ju da dembe ju yina te tamje ke marwa ran ke Tumu mai be nyelenda ane leji chi nyele tene ke ku re so yara nuba dan dembe ju tamje le jan debe ngobu tamje ke wa ma yin bar sera rani ke wa dan tumbe nuba ngebe ju nyele ke wa de se to har bi na ko to ke chi nuba ngebe ju chi le tene ke ro chu ya ki ma to ale so ba ki ma to ko rani kewa dan tumbe niba ngebe gyujinle kewa ten dida desa niba rarang keche ki gyudan kenyal ya niba yube niba ngeba shen yube shingdo kege inanda shing kege inanda tondo kege inanda karwa chiita nangi ina tewa da dungele soba mahomba yungju kange gyud mendra rerel teni debu kegri mato gyud tamche debu tamche kege mato niba ngebe gyujinle kewa te ese 소소소 깨지 내가 내버려 란 주께지 사부들 주께라 아니 조께지 사부들 조께라 아니 제께지 사부들 제께라 어디나시 소소 년리면다 요래 대다 틈비 현지지게 면다 할 때는 깨고라 어디서자 아니 가서래 라니 깨와다 틈비 내가 내배 내가 내배 주길래 깨와대서 디다데스 뉴베견을 때는 좋아서더라. 라라께지 등모 많이 배 뉴버던 데배 교견을 때는 기그를 마도 교견 탐적인 데부 탐적게도 말해서 거라. 디다 돼서 빼는 디다 그래. 머리 배견긴 도시 남서. 통면 머리 방어 냐별로 간지 숙체부치 대왕게 당하에 대화다 강에서에 대해 첨부시도 대왕게 에네레사 그래도 다딩하에 대화요한데 두고 통해서 엔디 제고도 삼 아니 룽아 요송기 겨와다 메겨와 택벨레 시그라 어제 그 팀베 규실을 때네 팀베 제부도 파이기도 왔어요. 머리 베개긴 도시 남 제바전 다 나기 때들 자로 머리 베개긴 도시게 넘버쇼게 민다수 때들이 알아 중이고 라랑 도스 빠지게 돼 팀베 규단 깨를 때네 제부기고 그랬어요. 대신도 뜻이 나서를 소바라랑 사변다 카셔를 사와시에 신부 공개 카셔를 사와시다 매국에 저다 근데 숙심부 여보다 매바 주켜봐 요하러 니다데 머리 베겐진 두지 남 제바다로 뭐보나 뉴베겐레 좋아이나서 시행어부이나다 나경어부이나다 컨디션이야 라라 깨지 드무 많이 베 녀랭기 주다 텔레 트로징게 대다 템베 현지시게 줄을 때니 깨고래 쓰거라 뉴베겐을 때니 좋아스티 숨버티셔도 개섬진나네 요함에 깨알았더니 좋아 라와 아니 미다고 또 몇개래 좋아 아니 뉴베견했더니 좋아 스티시도 어디 봐도 지구나
So here again, we've established, it's decided that a thing does not arise, a composite thing does not arise from a permanent cause, as that kind of permanent thing would not have the capacity to give rise to it for the reasons described above. And it is not the case that just any cause with the capacity to generate an effect gives rise to any effect, but rather it is a specific kind of a cause. It is specific to the thing, the effect that it is going to produce. So like if we have a rice seed, then that's going to lead to a rice sprout. Whereas if you have some kind of other seed, like for a lentil or for wheat or something, you're going to get a different result. So we need to have both, again, the sort of substantial cause as well as the coordinating conditions in order to lead to a particular result. And as we have established above, it can't be something that is just from the will of a divine creator or a kind of permanent single cause. And here, this is the third sort of point that is emphasizing that it needs to be a particular, a specific cause, one that has, one with the capacity that corresponds to the effect that it will produce. That's what's going to give rise to the effect. And so, it has to be one, and here this applies to anything, whether we are talking about external phenomena like various types of grain giving rise to their respective sprouts, to our own sort of future happiness and suffering and all of the kinds of experiences and things that we encounter. They all arise from specific causes and conditions. It can't just be from any sort of random causes and conditions. You can't have anything arise from anything, but rather they have effects correspond to their cause. And so here, thus, the sutra states, dependent on ignorance, conditioning factors occur, indicating that composite things arise from causes that have the capacity to produce them. So it is here in describing this kind of interdependent origination that we first have this thought of I, that fundamental ignorance, and then holding that I as most important, the sort of aims of that I. We then engage in various non-virtues and so forth, and in that way proceeding through consciousness and ignorance and karmic factors in consciousness and so forth, name and form, all the way through the 12 links of dependent origination. Each result arises from the proper kind of a cause. And so this is the case with external phenomena. something that is going to produce a result needs to have the proper corresponding cause. And so too with any kind of inner phenomena. So here, again, this is the third sort of point with respect to causes. Here, the first being that effects don't come from the will of a divine creator. They can't arise from permanent or a single cause. And they also need to be from a particular result that has the specific result, the specific cause to give rise to a specific result.
Oh yeah, that the DJ Chida Naga DJ Karina Delia Ceni Sumdan Dembe Kone Kigio Res Sheswa. The Ceni said, the Ceni Bazo Sashi Segwa May Ceni Rese, Tendre Ceni Shesio or Dilisio Mara, Tandan di Karsuresana, DJ Tende in a Tendre Sangu Rese, Ceni Tendre Sangu Res Disheyoda. Oh, what is it, Karsura? Kian Sum Lechung and DJ Ceni Sera. Nga le chong du che chen se ro o de sun zu yong gu nga le lab na te ga ju me ba le chong chen chi lu ra ne da bu ke le chong se da bu ma le se song ge ji chang ba la so ba tu zu cha cho ra da bu me be ke le te le chong se nga sha che yo ro do de de o da don da ti che tan do na se don da ka ri she ge se na do na ngo bo nam ra ra ge ju ji Yebale Geshe Mena Megewe Jesun Rodo Nebe Jujin Kyor Shetos. Tunda Karsho Nobo Kandeshi Naya Nobo Nam Raranga Jujinchi Yoku Resewara Jujin Yebale Geshe Rara Nobo Nam Nobo Nam Neba Dona Nobo Nam Raranga Jujin Yebale Geshe Rara la Jujin Yoko and Jujin Manikig Maresera. Mena Megeves, Timu Maibe Judake, Sikore, Midakwarwa, Ti Yona Gigriti, Manikig Marese, or Ti Cheson Rodo, and Nebe Jule or Neba Shetos. Jebukari and Judet and Cheson Rodog in Jawa to Gudesura. Cheson Rodo said it is a pena, Dora Sikio, Dode Mele Cheson Rodog in Jawa to Gura. Java, Toa de Mele Cheson Rodog in Jawa to Gure. Kades Toa Kando Yobala, Mengeba to Yogore, Toa de May Cheson Rogore. May Yona Chesini Toa Sikigra, Toa de May Cheson Rogore. Meden Dawsona, Meden Mavachasona, and it Toa de Mavachagre. Dog was a man doctor get Toa and Dog Sigra. Toa Kando Yobater, Mengeba to Yogore, Cheson Jawas. Men Dawsona. Tuan do res, the Cheson Rodog in Jawa to Jebu Kain, but a Judela, Cheson Droat and Dogman Jawa to Gure. Techum Disera, Telechum and Jawas, Jawalani Gurba, Tangi Chigwen Jawata, Techum de Judeg Jawani Yora, Cheba Medapa and Delisesona, Tangi Chigwe Jawa, Jujingi Cheba Kain, but then Medapa, Moyen Gures, Ramato, Cheba Juchen, Medapa Jewuchet, the Shagomara, or the Castle. Dona ngobo nam rarangi ju yebale Geshe Mena Menjove Cheson Rodo Nebe Jujile Kewa Neba Shadow, Debu Kandeshina Randa Cheson Rodo to be Juchi or Teleton Neba to Cheku Rese, Jundeg and Javadi Shevi or Resera. The Toa the Mendra Son Shannon Dua, Toa Gando Yevatelia, Me Cheson Delcore, Me Yonamado Toake Yomara, Mendosona, Toan Dogore. That the Shannon Digora, Tambo Sajetical me, Tua me Kage Mavsha, and a Mechi Kion, Tam Meleswa, Mechonswa, and a Shinji came on Teleshin Shana, and a metal and a Tua Chonswa. Tua de May Cheso del Swan, met the years and Tua de Keso, met the man thing and chimpanzee in the Tua Yumudoa, some Tua de May Cheso Drugodoa. Met the Pam Mavis a kid or that. And it toy your marwa, men dosona, toy the young Amedua. Careta toy you will careta, medici sare, says made in dosona, do. So called Cheson to dog in Jundeli Cheson to dog in Jawa to Guiora. Oh, thinking about the two Gurese, Jebu and a cute and then the Sango and then the Cogurese, Tishayora. Or Chita Nugget, Jebu Kandeshina. Rangi Timu may be Judida, Jason Rudokin Java, Nebardo Kugres, the Chevre, what is this?
So here, in this case, whatever is a dependently originated phenomenon must fulfill these sorts of definitions. Now, there's sort of one in which there are three kind of parts to this definition. Again, that the production, that things arise from causes that are not the will of a divine creator. And there is production, they arise from multiple kind of impermanent causes, causes that are like not from a permanent cause. And it also needs to be the case that they are produced, that things are produced from the causes that have the capacity to generate a particular result. It's not just sort of any cause can give rise to any result. And there are some times when there are sort of three characteristics that need to be fulfilled for this definition, and others where there are five. And in those, that includes that the production does not arise causelessly, and also not from the sort of actions of a divine being. So here, again, when it comes to sort of talking about the definition of something, we can think of like the definition of fire as being hot and burning, but here the definition is like it needs to fulfill those certain sort of requirements. For things to be dependently originated means that they fulfill those kinds of requirements. So here, then, it continues in the text, and this, in short, it says, composite things are produced from their specific existent causes and conditions. If these specific causes and conditions do not exist, then composite phenomena are not produced. And so here, therefore, the citation from the sutra above affirms with certainty that effects are produced from causes that have a direct relationship with their effects, and in that the effects ensue once the causes exist and do not arise when the causes are absent. Now here in the Tibetan, it's a little like the words go a little bit quicker, but there's this important relationship of following after. So we could take, again, we can have two types of relationships between things, a kind of causal relationship, like smoke coming from fire, or you can have the kind of relationship of things being of a single nature, like a product, like products and impermanent. It's not like one leads to the other, but they're of the same nature. But here, when we have something like the case of a particular cause leading to a particular effect, it's such that it follows after. So if you light a fire, if you have a fire, you're going to have smoke come from that. That's the direct sort of relationship that you have there. And if you extinguish that fire, then there's not going to be that particular result. That's really what this is getting at here. So if you have a place where there's nothing whatsoever, somebody walks in and they've got some fire, they light that fire, there's going to be smoke. That's the kind of direct causal relationship. And say they get rid of that fire, they carry it away or they extinguish it, then there's not going to be any more smoke. And so here, this is the kind of relationship that is that characterizes dependent origination between results, causes and results, is such that they have this kind of direct relationship that follows after. When there is a particular cause, that will lead to a result. And when that cause doesn't exist, it won't allow the result to arise.
Oh, yeah. That's the attention, Deborah. That's the Doshandar. Tandanga solution bendo that in the Marchon and Shishera. That's the Doshandalian in the Sonsha. The attention, Deborah, Tambu, the number of them, Donald Carson Dosena, Doso Sos, dollars of what they did in Domambuyora. Oh, there's another Chinajing over Denam, the dagger, you can't, but I can't situate. And it you Denam Jin Jebu, Wabuna Kewa, and Suchidari is Sangelia condition to Ative. Landelia, Tenjin Deborah, Kanye Shenasia, Tuashin, Landelia, Dion and Dijon, Dickibish and Dickie can't did that Maribe can do Star and Roswa, or Tinashi. Can some legion at Dujeg and that and Dujel Tesum the Sangoris Sonsha Asagara. She saw can some legion and the Dujet and Digit Senido, 20 years Somshis. In a tele can some legion as a most 6 channels some to the Diana Dick and Dickibish Dicky, Kandi Maribe can do Jesse, Tandala can some legion at the Duje che c'è sangue se sono sciasi ora. O dici la
So then continuing here, it says in the sutra explaining the first factor of dependent arising and its division. So here we're following the sutra, the Rice Seedling Sutra, but the Buddha spoke of this as well in other sutras. And there are more on dependent arising. And the question arises, the question is posed of the Buddha, what is dependent arising? What characterizes dependent arising? So this question asks, what are the causes and conditions of external and internal things, and how do they produce composite things that are their effects? So here, as the Buddha did in the Rice Seedling Sutra, he responds with, because this exists, this occurs. Because this arose, this arises. This is called dependent arising. That is, dependent on ignorance, conditioning factors occur. And so here, again, this implies those three components of the definition, those three characteristics, that there is production from causes that is not a divine creator's thoughts, production from multiple impermanent causes, and production from a cause that has the capacity to give rise to the effect.
Oh yeah, you have nila so what you done number jeba. Should you number in those you are. Tinaliane, sumle chua delia, also can sumle chua res, can sumle chua de duce, senior res, the sangures, and also some shas or. Then that can sumle chua de, also charses sungura. Dole ne tejin debra joya, seni kain, se sangilia, tuashibe lando, shumden de can sumle chua de. And can some let you want to look for several so this. Look for several changes, can some let you want to do changes my so shas or Tamatole, Tanda Sombumato, can some let you want to some good tagati, some good medua also, or this one. Or some then they can some let you want to look for several so days, per several changes, and take some shas, Shandan Dotolia, Tanda Sombumato, can some let you want to do some medusa. Do tinile kelonda tenjin debar joe chengi ni number sum days de doa tenjin debar joe chengi number sum sangure se kares yo amebe kele joe chengi midabwe kele joe chengi ene nibe kele joe chengi to so oti sum sangade ngos sum sha sora nibe kele joe chengi to shedas oti chilamna tacha.
So here, then again, quoting from another sutra, the sutra enumerating phenomena called Discerning the Divisions of Existence and the Rest, the Buddha, in response to a question regarding the definition of dependent arising, elaborates on production from the three causes. So here above in like the Rice Seedling Sutra and these others, the first factor of dependent origination and so forth, it implies the kind of necessity of these three factors or sort of three causes. But here in this sutra, this particular sutra enumerating phenomena called the Discerning the Divisions of Existence and the Rest, here he actually lays out these three particular causes. So, O monks, there are three defining characteristics of dependent arising. Production from a cause that is not a divine creator's thoughts, production from multiple impermanent causes, and production from a cause that has the capacity to give rise to the effect. So again, this is taught laid out very clearly, these three kind of characteristics, as well as it is implied in those other texts.
Oh yeah, that's all jumping the capsules, Tandangazutal Shesara. The capsule condo shebatar. You are maybe killing any chance, Shisoguta. Jukin the Sansona, Debuki Mado Telia, Jidai Chebabu, Kulongio, Kiko, yes, or Tende Samlo, Mena Kim Grace, you are maybe killing chance. Medaba to make any chance, and a cute tagba latene, two tagba, Junica say, to Tenchame tagba, Chiso tagba, La Soba, tagba, you can let your care your mother. Medaba to make any chongores, Nishera, Medaba to make any chance. Gosh, Jambe Capsule, you are maybe killing Chuan, Medaba to make any Chuan Sumjitendos. Condo Shebe, Yoa mebe kenda, midaba to me kenda, nebe ken le chunga, roa sum doswa, sum ki ten dose. Kyudan cheba le chunga sengi, kyu mena kig mare se tambuda songdoa. Di yona kyugin, yona kigri mena kig mare chara. Ta mebe ken la teni chunga se. Tandi ta meba se na ne rangwa be kyudan ken la teni kyo meba tende le cha chora. Ya tabo mebe ken le tende, uda tabo se na jib. Ya malik se tira tabo songen. Sama songengi kienle teni chunga. Da mebe kienle teni chunga. Che tsengi ngaye kone chinagi tenri niki jungsu seshi kebar song las. O tenri song shas. Ya tibado chilana.
So here, then, the Rice Seedling Sutra adds two more to this list. So again, the idea that the causes and conditions need to be complete in order for something to come about, but they don't need sort of the will of a divine creator of some kind. It's only dependent upon having all of the sort of aggregation of causes and conditions. You don't need to have that kind of will of a divine creator. And if the causes and conditions aren't complete, then even if you were to have that, they couldn't bring about a result. And then, of course, they need to be multiple impermanent causes. You can't have a permanent kind of cause lead to impermanent results. And finally, the production from a cause that has the capacity to give rise to the effect. And so the Rice Seedling Sutra then adds on to those that production from existing causes and production from selfless causes, thereby giving a clear and detailed explanation of both internal and external dependent arisings from the viewpoint of all five defining characteristics. So here, it is not the case that from existent causes, from something where the result already exists, and production from a sort of selfless cause. So again, one doesn't need this, can't rely on something that is a permanent cause, something like partless particles or time or some sort of general principle, as well as from the kind of these other two are added to complete these five defining characteristics.
Oh yeah. Tane gombo lutu ki salu jambe tsi liur cheba chiwara. Tsikche chene sungsha chiwara. Gombo lutu ke. Oh, tina la sungwara. Tsi liur cheba la se. Tina la kande sungdo se na. Oh, tina la dire tene. Tale maye shenle mis. Tale kewa se tagi tal shenba. Kyu tu sun drebu yone, kyu da tangi chikpa che, kyu nega sun drebu yone, ane koranti ne su tayo batala, tale kiawa sigara, ti tangchen bala soba, ti sun degura, chiruba, ti tu gyagali ya trubda trachenpa sonza, ti mares che, ti sungi ordo, tale kiawa mayes, shen le min se de, tante shen se de, kyu shen le teni drebu shen kiawa yo mares, cha su chi yo re, keba kashe se ti mare, Rangwene drube kyu shen le tene, rangwene drube drebu shen kyo yo ma res, tir chagre, che songa pato zo ine ra. Dale ma yin se, rangi tangi chikbe kyu le tene ma re, rangda tangi shen de rangwado drube kyu shen le tene, rangwene drube kyu drebu shen kyo yo ma res, shen ki se tir chagra. Dale ma yin shen le me se. Ni dan chebu tu le me se, niga le kyo yo ma res, taki le shen ki niga yin senge tene yo to. Chiruba da tezo chiruba yanka chiwara. Oh, nida chibu jitengi chebabo le chunga marese. Tu le mense, tu takba le tene chunga, tu me takba le tene chungura te noya nyagdo. Tu le mense de, tu takba, tu chebabo jiten chebabo donge chiruba trupda yorwa. Oh, tezo deva nashe marese ora. Teshin wanju so mense, teshin wanju chembola so ba tezo ke Kulung samlutan dindi ko dindi magwese tende chene chwa mare se gura rangshin le me se chizo rangshin le dene ganga chungre chizo se takba chi sha tele tene ni chungre se yor tambu ji den kamzu kande chungre se ne chizo se chiore se te sem da tende yoba chi mare pembo kora tu tuba pembo ina dege ni jigden ganga de sukier koran kyu yo mare se koran takba ti tal kyu yo mare se ti tal kyu chena ine 통미 re samgudwa tetal 통미 re de ware nangba chena tangbu de kake mebe chela tangbu tongja chike mebe chela ane ne jinjik den tu simchen satu chung ten yo ma to zambuli chili shane de da bu shabe na tambu namga tongba chayani sardu dechung teni kansa chung tindani yordo mato chida ko zambulin tayo mare kiawale tayo mardo kyu meba chi yo mar dili kyu yo mar di tal kyu go mar se chi yo mardo o ina o ti sha yora rashi le mese ne ka kyu mi mes kyu meba le teni kiwa kyangbe ba to so da kyudan kengi jugba yan thoma mebe tu jena kyudan ken chikne chikdu kyude ko thoma meba ne kyu yong gesire ese thoma dirin di tal yo mar se chi yo mare tutenina ko tuten chamu chamu se panji ti 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 chi 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 juan du se ki wara ngaraji kyawa ina kyawa ngamane ya debe ina so gore chashane pame kuda pae kuda mai kuda pamani yore ya chida but shibaje giba shibaje so lugi nyele de tu yogora ti talia de tedona zako ngabo tambe tende samlo tare jigba ke research wardo jezako ya dendo ne tayo mar mando na ko jurgi che korachi dosha gara chi tu dena nang semina jurgi kabri tramu che kabri ragwa che kabri me sem che kabri tandu sem che to che dosha gardo tinde karse do judan kengi jigba ya se juti pa che yo de thoma mebe te je ki thoma mebe ne je yo de ma thoma ji shane ti ta la tu te yo ma sim je yo ma se de yo ma nang ba ya junga da ge chiru ji te ji de bar jo ha se junga la te ne ne chiru ji te ji de bar jo ha de es o tinde shi do de ngo bulu do ti na sung do she da se o ti ji la na
No. So here then, quoting from his verses on the Rice Seedling Sutra by Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna gave a kind of verse commentary on the Rice Seedling Sutra, wherein he says that nothing is produced from itself or from another, from both or from time, from a divine creator such as Ishvara, or from a principal cause, or without a cause. So it will continue then. But here, first beginning with nothing being produced from itself. Again, the cause, according to, like, say, the Samkhyas, for example, they would say that the result exists at the time of the cause, that something is produced from itself in that way, that, like, say, this principal nature is the source of all of the various phenomena within the world, and they actually exist at the time of the cause. So that kind of production is refuted, as well as a kind of production from other. Now, some would say that this is the way that things are produced. They would actually accept that production arises from another. But according to Lama Tsongkhapa and those that follow after, this is a kind of production from another that exists from its own side. And that's something that cannot be asserted. And so nothing is produced from itself or from other, from both self and other, or from time. There's the potential for misunderstanding here because, again, we can see that things that are impermanent, they change with the passage of time, and in that way, they sort of arise from time. But this is a particular different understanding of time as being something permanent that can act as a cause. And again, that's not something that is viable. Nor do things arise from a divine creator, such as Ishvara, nor do they arise from a sort of principal nature or without a cause. This idea, again, of a principal nature is something that is espoused by the Samkhyas in particular, and it's the kind of, it's actually considered to be the material substance from which everything arises. So in this way, that principal nature acts as a cause for everything else, but it itself is said to be causeless. Now this creates kind of issues because to assert something causeless is very problematic. So when Buddhists, for example, talk about the origin of the universe, it's not as though that just arises from complete nothingness, but rather you can't really actually even point to a beginning, but rather we can point to sort of specific developments, like when there was an empty space, and from those very subtle particles of sky, this kind of gross forms arose and so forth. And so we can talk about kind of production in that way from specific causes and conditions, but talking about the sort of first cause, or whether that there could be something like a principal substance, a principal nature, which is causeless, that's not something that could be asserted. Now, when we look at the kind of like, if you trace everything from our mental consciousness to the sort of physical substance of our body, there's a continuity to those kind of particles, those atoms. We can, it would actually probably scare us a little bit to try to think about the origins of our body, like tracing back to this like sperm and egg of our mothers and fathers and their mothers and fathers and so forth, all the way back. But whether it's material things or the continuity of our own mind, it's not possible for us to assert that there is a beginning. So here, continuing into the second verse, it says, "An arising from causes and conditions comes from beginningless time. Thus you assert that external things arise in dependence on the five causes."
Oh yeah. I do Lutu Kira, Gombo Lutu. Oh, Papa Salu Jamba Shawa, take what she been the Geshe Yeshi Shung Shadashidwa, O Tina and the Song Shasa. The Dersonte, young Mabasa. Sabu Lasso, my dog, what a shangy Jushin Mercedes. When I judge in Jambata Wikewalia, my Sabu Tabgura, and it did that to be Chuda, Druda, Shella Soba, quoted that to be Kenshi Corridor. Oh, there's only 10 and Nico Sanson Yabuki good essay. Tima dog was Shangy Juyo Marese. Oh, Shangy Jugario Maresne, Shangy Jushin Mercedes. One you saw that Jumeba. Jumeba Letene Kigmari, Jiden Jeba one Juke, or Tida Tiku do something, and it's Kulungi Young to Tane, Tendetion and Kyo Marese. Sabin that Chuda Lula so one day Kyo than Timber Kokukin sauce on a cooking with essay. O Tenation of Karina, cheating in and Naga Kibu, Tawada Tunga in and Koran Keji Timber Kudan Kinshority, sauce on a came with essay. Shanda is the Nicheva Bola so what in Dreg, Gena, San Kego, Magina, San Makio, Tendeng you have my race gora. Shangy Jushin Mercedes. Once you saw that Jumeba, Shan won't you get Sigmari, Jumeba Lieutenant Umaris. Musum saw the Geshe once you whichever Jumeba Lieutenant Chuaris and get to Jambi Bada, once you got to the Chiru to the mountain Segundo. Musum Lasso Geshe, Musum Dangeodes. Me picking Musum to Legas and the subject of Kale Kemne, Yaki or Matochi, Shandaji Samutani, Majetin, Jure Mabot, Musum good troop there or Sangora. Shibabu Kansadi, so Kansadi to Shimbo to Kale Kemia, Kitek to us. Chuji Masana came to Chujin Sansone came good to us. Or tea, two men a Kivasan, Musum Dangara, two Yerban Musum Dua. Two men and Shimbo to the Nage, there's a Kagalega Majitation and do the Kiongura. Tigo Mar Chujin Kuyo, Musum Dangara. And Jidan Shibabu, the Jabate, Mara Dingaraz, so the chick to us. Me to do the business, so the lang and Sambudang Basane, Sendele Koyoandua, so the Jebut and Regit, Lotso Yabu, Cabachag, that Timbe Teva Samba Combat Samba, and it is Uda. And so there was a chance, and Shandachi Udua. The source was like a child, the Chan, tell it and Jebut the kick to us. Then was some good to us. Then in my hand, Taka Cabach. And this case could you and she didn't say about conscience and bully toto the chair no conscience to the Kangba Jaya the Lambua Soyata Chalaso someone in Arazu Cherry says Arazu me chair says your what is sort of chair that and that so Shanda chair mother so nugget and doing and the cheat and doing and the rara timber cute and can you order teach how much and teach the best and any care with a cigar. Till Bezzo much of Shandash and she young good subject, there's an animal. So Jujin the currents in the Hakuacha, Jujin tell it Jebu Karakugan, tell that to be cute and can cargo do Samlata, till a Bezzo and TK with S, Tita Sosa Assembly, Yichi to the Shayo. Oh, Sabila so Madobo Shangi Jushin Mechadi. Won't you so that you meba? Musum la so Geshe Rosa. Sabile Nugula Soba Kegi, won't you that so that Tula Soba, Tu Tabala Soba, Nekuma, Musum da Cheso Babatage, Mimi Bani Veshirosa. The Musum dan Gegre. Jusen and Dalatene called Tuya Yomari, Jusen Yomari. Musum Guton dan Gegrese. Namge Bemashin, what the Reshe Dengade, Namge Ubala Medonashi, Namgal Ubala Medo Kigris and Romato, or Tina Shirese. She's some Bataros, what is Chilan?
So, here, then also from Nagarjuna, as he says in his extensive commentary on the Rice Seedling Sutra, aside from seeds and so forth, there are no other causes. Ishvara and causelessness contradict the obvious, and so on. So here, when it comes to, like, say something like a rice sprout, that we need to have the proper kind of causes and conditions. We need the sort of cause of a seed. We have to have that kind of substantial cause of a seed, as well as the coordinating conditions to bring forth that seedling. But there's no other kind of cause that is necessary. We don't need Ishvara or some sort of divine creator to be able to bring forth a seed. And so again, this is something that if we have the causes and conditions complete, then things come about. The effects will naturally arise. Whereas if they are not present, if we haven't accumulated, we haven't collected all of the proper kind of causes and conditions, then there's no way that that can come about even through the will of a divine creator. And this is something that if we were to assert that things arise from Ishvara or arise causelessly, this clearly contradicts our direct experience. Like looking at the way that people make effort in order to plant their crops, in order to get a harvest. It's not as though they need to wait for Ishvara to like sign off on that for them to reap the result, but rather they make an effort at accumulating the proper causes and conditions because it is exactly that brings forth results. If you didn't have that, then it wouldn't matter what people did. They couldn't bring forth results, or they would have something missing. But we can see this from our direct experience. Nothing arises causelessly without the kind of proper causes and conditions. When we look at our own experience, the kind of suffering and happiness that we experience is a direct result of the kinds of actions that we have accumulated, the kinds of actions that we have engaged in. And so this is the kind of making the assertion that there's some sort of divine creator that acts in the causal process, or saying that things are causeless, clearly contradicts our direct experience. It's really only our efforts, our actions that lead to results, because we're accumulating the proper kind of causes for a result to come about. Once I heard someone in India say, like, well, if there's a creator God, I guess he just sort of made the planet and then stopped there, because we have to build our houses and our roads and stuff. So why didn't they continue creating all of these other things? So really, we can, through our own experience, have confidence in the fact that it is creating the causes that leads to a particular result, accumulating those causes or making an effort at those that leads to results, and nothing else. And that's something that we can have confidence in based upon our own direct experience. So here, something that just arises causelessly, or that arises due to the will of a divine creator, is something that's like a sky flower. It says, as a commentary to this verse, seeds and so forth produce sprouts and so forth. Ishvara, the principal nature, time, and the like, are not the causes of sprouts, for these causes would be just like flowers growing in the sky, not perceived either by direct perception or inference.
Oh, yeah, that is. This is also, yeah.
So we'll stop there for today, as we're out of time.
Oh, thank you so much for this commentary, Rinpoche. And Katrina, thank you for your very clear translation, interpretation. We'll be here again next week at the same time, and we'll finish with some dedication prayers. May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life, May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Yidam Guru Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but peace forevermore.
Tuchenan, Dunja Jema Jeon.
Recording stop.